Per the usual every other Wednesday, we have Dev Diary 25, Advanced Combat and Weapons. Now, as anyone who played Bloodlines 1 will know, combat wasn't exactly its forte. Now, using powers on folks to turn them mad, make them run around, make them just off themselves, and all kinds of other nifty stuff was certainly cool, and you can't beat those stealth kills with the katana. But that's about as deep as it got, and Dev Diary number 7 didn't show a lot of hope for anything better. Well, if we can believe this Dev Diary, maybe there's hope for Bloodlines 2's combat. Now, we here at the Outpost prize characters, dialogue, choice, plot far more than combat. But this is a game after all. Who wants to just suffer through some crappy combat to get the story elements? So let's see what they have for us. Starting us off, they talk about brawling. And they make mention of getting outnumbered. And they'll say this a couple of times throughout this article, that taking out that individual might be easy, but you're gonna have to do crowd control. What I'm hoping this means is you don't just fight one guy and everybody stands around waiting. I hope they actually do all try to jump you at once and make crowd control absolutely necessary. No, not that I want to die all the time. But if you're going to put multiple enemies coming at me, at least make it make sense. On the subject of using your fists, the devs just didn't give everybody the same punch. Each clan gets its own hand-to-hand style. That's freaking cool. And it's interesting, they do mention that it's a small thing, but it really helped people get into the character they were playing. That is an absolutely wonderful attitude by a developer. Heck, maybe there's still some hope for this game after all. In the accompanying animated GIF, while unlabeled, they do cycle through all 4 clans. Of particular note are the punches from the Tremere. You get to maintain distance even though you're technically doing melee. And here they introduce the idea of combos, both defensive and offensive. Obviously, you can dash away from an enemy, or you can use it offensively to rush into their strike, breaking their guard, and following up with a serious beatdown. Next, you get to kick people. This again can be crowd control. Rush in, do a particular type of kick, because there's multiple ones apparently, and you can make a bunch of enemies stumble. Doesn't create a lot of space, but it stops them from attacking you immediately apparently. Or you can focus on one idiot and knock him back, giving you space to go through. And in this little section, they also mentioned that repeatedly using the same type of attack will trigger the ability for your enemies to resist that attack, and vice versa. They try to do the same thing consistently to you, you can resist those. This hand-to-hand fighting system seems a lot deeper than I originally expected. Next, we start looking at some of those powers you have. You can use telekinesis to yank enemies to you, to do a kill, or feed. But be warned, Kindred and their ghouls just might be prepared for such a tactic. But what has to be one of my favorites is you can pull an enemy to an edge of a roof and let them go. This is one I really want to try. Who else remembers using the Force in Dark Forces 2 to yank an enemy off of a ledge, or do a force choke, move them over past the edge of the ledge and then just letting go? Now that was fun combat. Still focusing on telekinesis, I say you can grab objects, throw them, and it will act as a distraction. Or you can grab a flammable object like a gas tank and put it in the face of one of your pursuers. And if you do it right, you've got an AoE. You can also use telekinesis to grab weapons, do a reload, empty the gun and somebody, and then toss the gun at another person. And I do appreciate how they put thought into the progression of a fight. And there are even more combos mentioned here. Put Blood Curse on someone and then throw something at them, triggering it, they explode, and they do damage to the surrounding enemies. Or use some mass manipulation and then taunt, resulting in the enemies dropping their guns. Then you use telekinesis to yank one to you and start a firing. The more of these combos, the better, especially if you intend to do multiple playthroughs. Now the combat isn't just one way every time. Next, they show our character taking an explosive arrow to the chest, ouch, yanking that sucker out, and doing a return to sender. And this thing appears to have some distance on it. Another cool thing you can do is set a recall point. Put it somewhere up high, and if things get a little too hot, bamf out. And again, they mention how overwhelmed you can get if multiple enemies are attacking you, especially if you get knocked down. I'm not a huge fan of make it hard combat, but if it's not a challenge, then what fun is it? Yet another combo they mentioned is using Cauldron of Blood, which then gets a bunch of people to come around and see what's going on, using Blood Curse on one of the enemies, and then detonating it. Instant AoE damage. And they give us another example, and this one I think's pretty cool. Maybe a little sick, but still it's pretty cool. You possess an enemy and then make them run off the edge of a roof. I wonder if you can make them run into fire and other things as well. Next, they tell us about the 4 types of elixirs in the game. We have your standard health potion, the mending elixir. It heals you. You have a blood elixir, which fuels the blood dips associated with your abilities. Next, we have the presence elixir. This booger increases your strength. And finally, we have the fortitude elixir, which lets you absorb more damage. They say it turns your skin to marble. The final reveal is difficulty. You've got your bog standard, easy, normal, and hard. Easy is story mode with forgiving combat. Normal, they say, will challenge you to using all of your abilities. But of course, if you want to go insane and play hard mode, you can do that as well. I usually start off on normal, and if I'm adventurous, I'll go ahead and throw it into hard mode. On occasion, if I just want to do story beats, I'll drop something to as easy as I can. That way I can plow through the combat. And finally, we find out on February 12th, it's going to be the Masquerade in Seattle. Again, I think this might actually be fun combat if they can pull this off, and here's the big thing, if I can pull any of it off. What do you folks think? Leave us a comment below. And remember, give us a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.